Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good day wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the next episode of No Dice, No Glory. Sponsored by our jobs that actually pay us money, we're coming to you not at all live from an abandoned arms factory deep under a mountain in West Virginia. We are proud to proffer to you the finest in wargaming coverage. Without any further ado, let's get this show on the road.
All right, Sean, thank you for leading us in. My name is Ed Sales.
And I'm Austin Copty.
And we're doing a No Dice, No Glory podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to bring a tactical advantage, improve your guys' list building. Maybe you're having a hard time beating that local guy at the club and you're just trying to find that tactical edge. We're here to provide it.
That's right. You're going to like the way you tactic. We guarantee it.
Oh, man, that's great. I love that.
We had to start a little bit of corny. I mean, it wouldn't be a No Dice, No Glory without just a little bit of cheese.
I know. Where's Mitch where you need him, right?
Not here.
Oh, man.
For everyone listening, thank goodness. He's asleep. It's a little late. Mitch had to go to bed. That's what happens with old men.
Yeah, Space Force has been keeping him up. Been real busy. But anyways, like I said, we're doing a tactical podcast here. Again, trying to improve the way you guys play. And the first topic today is...
I think we're going to start with Soviet, the T-34 company out of the Enemy at the Gates book. If everyone would flip to page 23 in your textbook, you'll find that's where the T-34 early tank battalion is. And what's interesting about this tank battalion, at least in my book, is the T-34. The T-34 is a cheap Sherman, front armor 6, side armor 5, hit on 2s, but it's a 5-point tank. And in mid-war, for AT-9 with a tank that flies like the T-34 does, I don't think that you can get much better than this. And I think, Ed, you'll remember back in version 3 with Hens and Chicks, that rule was just crippling, and removing that from every tank and giving each tank the overworked special rule, I think this is a much more flexible tank in version 4.
I agree. I think taking the overworked rule is a lot harder pill to swallow than the old Hens and Chicks was for Soviet players. I fully agree, because you can stay still now, and it's not really that big of a deal. Or you can move one tank and not everybody suffer a penalty. I think that's a much easier pill to swallow. But, you know, you bring up a good thing. You talk about the T-34 tanks. You're saying it's the way to go, 5 points each. But I'm seeing a lot of chatter on Facebook groups, and everybody's talking about Russian lend-lease. They're better than the Soviet tanks. I don't see it. Is there something you see?
So there is a little bit to that, I would say. So if you take a look at the Lee, for example, it's a little bit cheaper overall, and you have the option of getting a gun that does not have the overwork special rule. But if you take it all into consideration, you know, the Lee is a slower tank. The Lee is a less armored tank. It's still hit on 2s, and you have to pay more points for that AT-10 gun. So in the big scheme of things, is the Lee a better tank? For the Russians, I'd say no. A Lee that's hit on a 4+, that'd be really awesome, and that's what the Brits get, and that's 18 points for 3 of them. But the Russians being hit on 2s with that 5 armor, if I'm going to be hit on a 2, I think I'd rather be hit with a 6 on my front instead of a 5. And I don't know. The secondary weapon doesn't add much for me. I think the 76mm gun on the T-34 is just as good as the AT-10 upgrade for the Lee. So looking at the two, it's not. It doesn't serve the purpose that you think it should.
Right.
I feel. Now, the Valentine, on the other hand, that's a different ball game. So the Valentine, I don't think is an anti-tank tank. I think your Valentine is going to be more of that anti-infantry, because the Soviets do suffer one really bad thing. Their skill is a 5+. So in those assaults, you're going to see your Soviet steel run up to your infantry on that objective, and they're going to struggle to push you off in an assault. I think your Valentines are going to be a little bit better for that, just because you can bring more of them into that fight. than the T-34. So when you're looking at the lend-lease versus Red Steel, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a Red Steel fanboy, but I think you can't go wrong with a T-34 and a KV-1. Um, I just can't see a situation where a T-34 would be beat out by an M3, or a KV-1 would be beat out. I mean, there's really no comparison for the Lend-Lease, but when they eventually get that Churchill in there, uh, I just don't see the comparison between the two.
I think you bring up a couple good points. First, you talk about the Valentine's skill of three. They really are, I think, the one of the best platoons you can take to the max for the Russians. I mean, you're getting 10. I think it was 24 points.
Side of 24 points.
Side of 6. I mean, there's not many things that are going to knock back that many tanks in an assault. The problem you're having is, like you said, skill of 5. You're not going to be making many swings. So I think a tactic that's popped up in mid-war recently is really so much not you're going to charge with this 10 Valentines in. You're not looking to get 10 kills. You're not looking to get 5 kills. You're really looking just to push the guy off the objective by hoping he fails his motivation to counterattack before you do. I'm thinking with the lack of infantry support weapons, you can keep coming back over and over again, and the chances of you losing tanks are slim. You're really banking on them failing that counterattack to push them off.
You're absolutely right. So, and that's my tactic with my list that I build out. And as a Brit player, maybe somewhat infamous for my 115 point 64 Stuarts on the field of battle, but
oh no, where's Matt Varnish?
he'll say something, I'm sure. But that was absolutely the idea. Was I wasn't going to hope to kill PZ3s and PZ4s. I was hoping to get up on your objective and make you fail your counter assault test, and then now I'm sitting with bristling machine guns against your infantry, saying come back and get your objective, and you're not going to do it. So, is that a tactic that is on the rise? I would say yes, because if we look at the last few tournaments that have posted up, you'll see another nation that is coming to the top, and it's those little itty bitty Italian tanks.
Yep, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. Absolutely, that's a surprise there. But another point you mentioned, the secondary gun on the Lees. How many times have you faced off against Lees in version 4 mid-war?
Well, as a Brit player, I can count on one hand the amount of times I've used Lees, and that was one time, and I thought they were overpriced for what you get. The secondary weapon is an AT-7. You get one shot per tank. It's not like you get that full rate of fire 3. You get one shot and hope that you kill an armored car or something like that. I mean, the Lee, you're really banking on that main weapon. The secondary weapon is it almost feels like a gimmick, It's nice. It could make the difference in that pinning down a gun platoon, maybe, but you have machine guns for that.
I would say that the secondary weapon on the M3 is a pleasant surprise, and the reason I say that, Pete Zerfy likes to take the M3 Lees. I've seen Bill White take the M3 Lees with his listing a few times. Why I say it's pleasant surprise is, I'll be rushing forward with Panzer 3s to meet the M3 Lee, and I'll have mortars try to sneak on the side, and Pete will sit there and shoot his main guns at my Panzer 3s and may light a few up. I'm like, okay, well, he's done for shooting. My mortars will take care of those Lees next shooting turn. And then he goes, oh, wait, I got to shoot my secondary weapons. And then it's like, oh, no, what have I done? I've made this crucial mistake. I was not expecting these secondary weapons. And then he lights up, 3 out of my 4 mortars. And you're like, oh, my goodness, what have I done? This is so unexpected.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you still have to shoot at the same target, because your target, you can still only spill over 6 inches from there. And doesn't your secondary weapon have to shoot what your primary weapon shoots at?
I believe we had actually looked up the rules, and the secondary weapon is no longer forced to shoot at the main target the main guns are shooting at. Now, I could be wrong, but I believe we had pulled this up in the rules, and this was a change from version 3.
Well, that would actually be really useful, because oh look, there's martyrs over there. I'll throw some AT7 at that, but my AT10 or
Yeah.
my AT9 for that matter, I'm going to push those towards what really matters, those PZ3s.
And again, I could be wrong. Listen, guys, if I'm wrong, please let me know, because that last thing I want to do is spread misinformation around. But I'm pretty sure when we looked up the rule book, it could go to a separate target.
Well, that's pretty interesting. I guess that gives the Lee a little bit of a like I'll stand by what I said. It's a gimmick. It's different, but it's not game breaking. And I don't
Right.
think that would not be the game breaking point. Like, oh, I'll never take a T-34. I'm only taking the Lees as my main armor for my backing.
Oh no. And you mentioned the lease for where they become the grants for the Brits, 3 for 18 points. And you talk about 4 points for the Soviets. It really becomes, do you want 4 for 16 points and you're getting hit on 2s? Yuck. Or do you want 3 for 18 points getting hit on 4s? There are times where it's nice to take a mass horde of tanks, and I really think you'd like to do that when you're talking about your light tanks. It's something where you can really just throw a lot out there.
And unfortunately, that Lee is not a light tank. And
No,
even the
it's not that cheap.
At that reduced point cost, you're still looking to take a swarm. You're really looking to take 18 plus tanks, and to take 18 plus Lees, you're looking at a 60 plus point investment, and they're just not survivable enough. You're going to lose them like you're going to lose light tanks, and a company of light tanks is going to run you 24 points, 25 points for your stewards, for the Brits, and they're hit on 3s. Now you're looking at your M3s. Every M3 you lose is going to be a bigger loss of points. So I don't think we're going to see many Soviet swarms with lend-lease tanks. Just that hit on 2s. It's the same reason I don't think you see many American Stuart swarms. It's just that hit on 2 is, there's too much stuff in the game that can kill you dead.
Yeah.
Which I think is a detriment to the lend-lease. Again, maybe excluding the Valentine.
Well, yeah. Again, look for 24 points. 24 points, I can take 10 Valentines, or for 24 points, I can take 6 Lees. I mean, which one are you going to choose? Sure, Lee's got the higher AT value. I think the Valentine has the bigger staying value, both on use for assaults and the number you can take for that 24 points.
Yeah, and that 24 points, those Valentines are going to keep off enemy stewards. They're going to keep off that German armored car squadron. They're going to hunt down a martyr, because that's what's going to kill your T-34s. Are going to be those martyrs, but the AT-7 is going to wreck those. So I think a good list should include the Valentines, but for your main armor points, I don't think you can beat the T-34.
Yes. That formation where you could take the T-34s and a second platoon of Valentines, that would be where I would put my money towards.
Yeah, absolutely. You fill up your HQ, you get your one of a T-34 company with, I think, 5 to 7 is probably the best number.
Yeah.
Because then it's not a huge sinking of points. You may even go to 8, because this brings up an interesting idea. If you go to 8, that's 42 points. At a 100-point game, 42 points is your reserves. You have one platoon off the table. You have your HQ, your 10 Valentines, your SMG company, and your 82mm mortars, or possibly even your KVs as a support option. Bring in some of that heavy red steel. You're looking at, let's see, with the Valentines, it's 24 and 40, so you're looking at 60-ish points in tanks, 70 points in tanks. That gives you 30 points to play around with infantry, some anti-tank guns, and some template weapon options.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, you can even bring the Katyushas in at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Get that salvo weapon in there.
Oh, yeah. So, and this leads us to something that in the first few weeks since Enemy at the Gates and Iron Crosses came out has been a surprise for me. The Italians have suddenly been winning tournaments and have been finishing at the top of the standings. I did not expect that to happen when the Soviet tanks came out.
Did you really though? I mean, if you look at it, that AT6 with heat, I mean, and 6 machine guns, I mean, they're better Stuarts. If I had $300, I would drop my Stuart Swarm and go play Italian tanks. They're vet tanks. They're hit on fours. They've got the same armor, that 342, AT6 with heat. What's to lose with Italians? I mean, they're little bitches.
I, when Italian tank or when the Soviet tanks came out, and even when the Churchills came out with armored fist, I was like, oh no, the Italians are done. I mean, they're just sure they have the Lancias, but what do they have after the Lancias to knock out routinely a medium to heavy tank, especially the heavy tanks?
Well, think about it. They have the capability of bringing 488s, which that's nothing to laugh at,
No.
and it's pretty economical. Um, then they can bring German support. So I think I've been quoted as saying, several times, the Germans really are the best faction in the war because they can bring Italian tanks, which are probably the best tanks in the game, I think. Italian tanks, German infantry, and captured British guns. And you've got the best of everything right there.
Yeah, the list I've honestly been playing with, and I have to give Benny Christensen, he's a No Dice No Glory writer, a lot of credit because he wrote an article on the L640 Italian tank. And that article got me really interested to the point where I was like, I got to buy a bunch of L640s and I have to do it now.
Did you?
Oh, absolutely. And I fielded them. Come to BarrageCon, they'll be fielded again in both games. You make a good point. The German armored car formation, the Germans really have some of the best support options in the game. It's just their core stuff is so incredibly expensive. It really makes it hard to field. So in order to get that good support options, unfortunately, you have to take the German armored car formation. And if you go to a tournament that allows you to take a second formation, you have to take the Italian L640s. They are just too good.
I mean, look at a few weeks ago, my good friend Robert Baumkamp, he brought an Italian tank formation with German armored cars, and he took first place
Mm-hmm.
in a 40-man tournament. I mean, it's bringing the best of both worlds. It's a vet swarm with vet support, high AT options, fast moving. Version 4 is all about the aggressive strike. And if you can bring a heavy aggressive strike that's hit on fours, maybe fives in concealing terrain or something like that, you're going to succeed more than you fail.
Yeah, and I just took second place at a tournament taking the German armored car formation with an Italian light tank company and support. And for 1 point, I don't think there's anything you can take that is equivalent to that same cost to that light tank that's going to beat it. I mean, it's a veteran tank, front armor 3, side of 1, and top of 1. But it's low AT, but for 1 point, what can you take that's going to equal it? And I could take 19 of them for 19 points. There's a lot to throw it around.
There is. Now, to kind of bring it back to our main talking point, like, what are these Italians going to do against Soviets? And, against that T-34, you said yourself, I was afraid, what are the Italians going to be able to do against, KV-1? Well, the L6 is not going to do anything to a KV-1.
Oh, no.
But it's all that support that they can bring that's going to bring down the Soviets.
Yeah, because in my list, I have to take Martyrs.
I think that's just a guaranteed. If you play a German list or an Axis list, you have to bring Martyrs.
Yeah. And I really like the captured KV-1 for Germans. 10 points gets you the Soviet Tiger. I mean, front of 9, side of 8, top of 2. It can't take objectives, can't hold objectives. Doesn't count as a victory point if it gets killed. But for 10 points, if I have to go against T-34s, it's got an 89. Just that little bit is going to help me because it's going to attract a lot of attention.
I mean, it's a bullet magnet at that point.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you should use it for, because it's going to be you're going to have to either come across a very skilled player or a very well thought out player that's not going to try to shoot it up. I'm reminded of my game last Sunday here in my local store. I played 100 points. Soviet player. I was playing against a friend of mine, John, and he brought Soviets. His list consisted of a T-34 command, 2 platoons of 5 T-34s, 3 KV-1s, and 6 of the 82 millimeter mortars. And I was running a Churchill formation, so brought 7 Churchills, 2 platoons of 3, my HQ of 1, and 3 American support M10s. And I had to really think hard about what I wanted to shoot. Had he brought the KV-1s on the field, I have to focus that fire on those KV-1s because nothing's going to kill him that I have.
Right.
But then I give up all that firepower on the T-34s. So, as a Russian tank player, you want to push forward everything at the same time and force me to shoot at something that I don't want to shoot at. And you're going to do that by pushing up those KV-1s in concert with an infantry push, a Valentine push, T-34s. Put so much in front of me that if I don't take out the KV-1s, they're going to run over me. There's nothing I can do to stop them once they get close.
Right.
Or once they take out my M10s. They're not that hard to kill. And once that's gone, that's it. But if I take out those KV-1s, now I let 11 T-34s get right up on top of me, or I let them shoot 22 shots a turn into my M10s, and that's going to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a Soviet tactic playing the Red Steel, it's all about in concert movement going forward. You can't do piecemeal attacks. You can't focus on 2 objectives. Everything goes towards one corner of the table, towards that one objective, and you're forcing the battle on your terms at that point. Yes, you're hit on 2s. You accept that you're going to lose tanks.
Yeah.
But you give up those tanks to win the game.
And, we're talking about what Italians are going to do against Soviet tank armies. And Jeffrey Whitlock at the tournament at the Games Tavern in Chantilly a couple weeks ago, he took a list that I looked at it and I was like, this thing is going to shred infantry to pieces, but you have one anti-tank asset, and it's your Lancius. And I'm like, man, he's going to struggle if you go against a Soviet tank army. And I really expected to see a lot of Soviet tank armies, with it being the first weekend since Enemy at the Gates came out, Saw 1, and he got matched up against it round 1. And I'm like, man, this is going to be interesting. And he played it masterfully. He had lees coming from both sides and smoked one side of the table, and then took his Lancius, and the side that wasn't smoked killed all the lees. Smoke came up the next turn. He eliminated those lees. It was game over, just like that. I mean, it was done. It was a perfect example of, you have a limited asset, but he took control of the field by eliminating half of it. When I say eliminated half, he just essentially took half the table out of the game in one turn, and then the side that was open killed all the lees and just swung his Lanciers back to the other side and then just finished the game. And that was, I gotta give him a lot of credit. That was really knowing what his list was capable of doing, executing, and really taking control, winning that game 8-1.
I mean, and you're absolutely right. That's exactly how Germans have to do anything, or Axis for that matter. They just don't have enough stuff to deal with everything. But then, think about what I was just saying. If that Soviet player, though, all those lees had come up on the same side, if he threw smoke up in front of them, that's just another turn that the lees all get to live
and get closer.
So, divide and conquer, I don't think is a strategy that's going to work for Soviet armor. It's just too brittle, and version 4 fixed, your 31 T-34 horde list. You're never going to see that many tanks now. So your tanks are a more valuable asset, but you have to treat them like that. You can't just throw them to the wind because you don't have 31 of them. But I think a concentrated attack on an objective would be a very hard thing to throw back for any list. German pack line, for American M10s, ARPs. I think are going to prove to be a hard thing for Soviet armor to move just because of that high number of high AT units in the infantry.
Right.
But an aggressive Soviet player pushing a single objective, almost in that line abreast style tactic, I think is going to be a very... I won't say it just because Mitch is listening, but I think it's going to be a meta shift.
Oh, no.
I think once people see an aggressive Soviet list do well, and I think just last weekend we saw a top 5 tournament finish for Soviet.
Mm-hmm.
Once people see that an aggressive concentrated attack with Soviet armor is achievable, and not just achievable, but overwhelming, I think you're going to see more of it at tournaments, which is going to force people to think about the units that they bring and how they use those units. And like you were bringing up, Mr. Whitlock, it's going to force some tactical maneuvering and tactical control of the field to bring down the Soviets.
Yeah, and you were mentioning that tournament where the Soviets took the top 5 position. Andrew Hobson won that tournament, if I'm correct.
Yes, that's correct.
And I believe if I saw his list correctly as he posted it was HQ of a T-34, a platoon of 6 T-34s, and a platoon of T-34s, 4 T-34s. So it really seems like going with your, as you mentioned earlier, 4 to 6 T-34s is where it's going to be at. You don't want to go for the high 10.
No. So if you notice in the book, they get more expensive the more you get of them. So if you want the most economical T-34, you're going to go somewhere in the middle between 4 and 6. Anything more than that, you're paying more per tank.
Yeah.
Anything less than that is just a platoon that's waiting to run off the table.
Yeah, I agree.
At 100 points or there around, I think the optimal number of T-34s is 11. Anything more than that, you're paying more for your T-34s than you should be.
Yep.
Anything less than that, you're just asking to have your formation get routed.
I fully agree. You got to hit that sweet spot. You don't want to overpay for tanks. The M14 41s are the same way. You can take 3 for 6 points, or you can take 5 for 12 points, where instead of being 2 points each, they suddenly jump up for 3 points each for each additional one. Granted, at 3, you take 1 or 2 hits, and that platoon could be running, but it's that min-maxing chance you have to take.
Min-maxing, that's one of my favorite terms.
Well, we're talking about Italians being great in mid-war, Soviets, tank hordes potentially being great. There's a lot of chances coming up for us to use these forces. We have the TAPS event coming up October 20th in Fredericksburg. We're doing a charity for TAPS. TAPS, they provide assistance for family members of those who have fallen. It's a great charity event. And listen, we all love to play the game. Why not play the game and also help someone in need? It's a great cause. That's going to be in Fredericksburg. Mid-war. First 2 rounds are going to be 45 points. Very little point total. It's going to be a lot of fun, with the third round being nothing but tank teams at 75 points. I expect that to be a lot of fun. You need the information on it. It's on nodicenoglory.com. Also posted on our Facebook group. And another event coming on, and Austin, I know you got to be excited about this, the Ironman competition for Fallen.
It's going to be exciting. So we did something very similar to this, but it wasn't a sanctioned event at Historicon. And I'll tell you, there's nothing more exhausting than playing a whole bunch of games back to back to back. But the fact that Battlefront is going to be rewarding us for doing something like that, I think is great.
Listen, I don't play Team Yankee. I've played a total of 4 games of Team Yankee. The first 3 were at the Nationals in 2017, and I also played at the local club with the East German Army half. I am excited to play Team Yankee tournament because I want to get that Iron Man. I want to win the Iron Tom. For those who don't know, Team Yankee is on Friday, and the Flames War event mid-war is Saturday. If you register for both events, you are eligible for the Iron Tom Award. The Iron Tom Award gets awarded to the person who finishes the highest in both combined events. Also, regardless if we finish first place or last place. If you play in both events, you're going to get a coupon for 20% off a single purchase during the event with Battlefront. Now, I'm not talking 20% off a box, 20% off a blister. That's 20% off your entire order. This is the great chance for you to go, I want to build this company, but I don't want to spend the money on it. Hey, we're going to take 20% off that army. It makes it a little easier pill to swallow when you're trying to build that new army.
Absolutely is. If you're looking at buying a force, that will be the weekend to do it. And what better way to earn a 20% off coupon than playing the games that we love to play?
Yeah, and again, you don't have to be first place. You could be last place, and you are eligible for that 20% off. There's going to be a lot of great players there. I'm going to be there. Austin's going to be there. We're going to be out helping the new guys play. If you guys need tactical advantage, we'll be there to help. And again, this is going to be November 9th for the Team Yankee tournament, and November 10th. November 10th for the Flames of War Mid-War event. Again, you can find this information on nodicetoglory.com. Find it on our forums. Find it on our Facebook page. And it's definitely posted on the front page of flamesofwar.com. This is going to be, again, I don't play Team Yankee. I am super excited for this. I really am. I think it's going to be a really fun event.
It's going to be a lot of fun, but that's a lot of stuff on the East Coast in the I-95 corridor. Is there anything else going on in the rest of the country?
You know what? I'm glad you mentioned that. Troy Hill, he's our editor, and really, Troy Hill is one of our unsung heroes at No Dice, No Glory. He really makes our work really shine by the way he goes through and edits it. And he has been organizing a lot of great tournaments recently, and he's got one coming up on the West Coast in Fullerton by Anaheim on October 13th and 14th. Saturday is going to have both a Bolt Action and Flames of War tournament, and we've got a Team Yankee tournament on Sunday. So for those of you guys on the West Coast, that's a great chance to get in. I'm really liking what I'm seeing from the West Coast Flames of War tournament. There's a lot of new players out there. I've noticed a lot of guys are hungry to work their way up the rankings. The more tournaments you go to, the better you get and the better chances you have of getting those good scores in. And hey, October 13th and 14th, that's going to be one of the first tournaments of the new tournament season. So if you're trying to make Masters in 2019, great way to start. Go to that tournament.
I agree. Well, I think that is all for us today. We're going to end this podcast here, but I want to end on a note for our podcast. What Ed and I are looking to do is to make the community better and build the community so that people are empowered to go to these events and bring their lists and crush their opponents. But for us to do that, you got to tell us what you want to hear. So you tell us, and we'll tell you what we think about your lists. So if you want to hear about Russian Fallschirmjäger in late war, if you want to hear about Australian Div Cav in early war, you mention down in the comments. We'll take a look at it. We'll play a few games. We'll tell you what our tactical take is. And for Ed Sales and myself, Austin Copty, we're going to sign out today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you guys for tuning in.
And in recording.
Thanks so much for joining the show tonight. Remember to follow us on Twitter at No Dice, No Glory, and keep the conversation going on NoDiceNoGlory.com, now featuring our own message boards. Have a great night, everybody.